First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much indeed for organising the event today, because I just love everything to do with TED. I'm a massive TED enthusiast. I didn't know I was going to have to follow Howard Rheingold, because that, just the suit alone is pretty difficult to follow. First of all, I'd just like to draw your attention to some pictures which are scrolling across the screen. There'll be a small prize perhaps for anybody who can work out by the end of the talk, whether it's 6 minutes or 15 minutes, what the theme is behind these images. Well, as I say, my name is Patrick Andrews and I'm an inventor. And that's the kind of confessional thing which people might be heard to say kind of at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I'm Patrick and I'm an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic, just in case anybody's worried, but I am an inventor, and that's something that I only discovered a few years ago when someone I love pointed it out to me, because I have this compulsion to invent things. And it's my contention that the world is full of people with good ideas. This room is full of people with good ideas, but they don't call themselves inventors, because that's kind of an eccentric thing to do, isn't it? I mean, somebody today, even before the talk started, said, but you don't have the right haircut to be an inventor. And I think, that says something about the kind of stereotypical image that we have in terms of how we think about what an inventor should look like. But nonetheless, every day I come up with something new and I try and publish an invention on my little blog, which is called Invention of the Day. It's not a very good inventive title, but nonetheless. I must add that 90+% of these ideas are complete nonsense. Utter nonsense. And you say, well, what on earth are you doing it for? But my point is that we all have good ideas, but not every idea we have is a good idea. And the only way to get some good ones, I can see some people thinking here, what the heck is the theme here? What is the theme? There's a lot of grey matter going on here. We all have ideas, but not all are good ideas. And my contention is also that to have any good ideas, you have to be prepared to fail. You have to be prepared to come up with a lot of, if I can use the word on TED, crap. And in my case, I'm prepared to publish it to emphasize that story. Nobody comes up with 100% good ideas. Anyway, what I'd really like to do is to talk today about Inventor Centre. And to be an inventor, inevitably you come up against the world of intellectual property. And another thing I'd really like to do as a big project is to reform entirely the global system for intellectual property. And why you say, why would I want to do that? Well, essentially the existing intellectual property system and patents system in particular really works against lone inventors and small businesses. It's very good if you happen to be a pan-galactic pharmaceutical company, because the argument is governments give people a period which is free for them to exploit their ideas in return for the fact that they will tell everyone how their great new ideas work. Well, that's, and indeed, that people won't have ideas unless they're given this period of monopoly. Well, as an inventor, I've got to say, that's complete nonsense, because I can't stop having ideas. People who have a good idea this week will probably have 10 good ideas next week. We don't need a government incentive of 20 years monopoly to make that happen. It's just utter nonsense. But it works for big pharmaceutical companies. Sadly, the existing intellectual property system also has a seriously detrimental effect on the world of scientific research. I'm sure there are scientific researchers in this room who've come up against the conflict of, should I publish this, or should I investigate the intellectual property aspects of this before I publish it? There's a restriction placed there. Did you know, for example, I read today in The Guardian, I'm not a natural Guardian reader, by the way, I'm a natural independent reader for anybody who's interested, but I read in The Guardian today online that 20% of the genes in the human genome are now either patented or are subject to an active patent application process. We should all be scared about that, frankly, because what that means is that if people start holding patents for genes, then good stuff like gene therapy, genetics research is going to be stopped. It's going to be in the control of a very few big companies. And that really is dangerous. That's as dangerous, I would argue, as the fact that food production is in the hands of 8 global companies. We need to be careful about that. The world of intellectual property is governed by lawyers, and I have a kind of love-hate relationship with lawyers. It's also changing very fast, though, faster than the law can change. And we've seen, and indeed in Howard's talk, we heard references to open source. and movements like open innovation. Open innovation means basically that companies realize they can't have all the good ideas internally. They have to listen to outside ideas, which is generally a healthy thing, as long as the deals are favorable. And also governments now, instead of using patents, are starting to move towards a prize-based system. If you invent a cure for cancer, we'll give you $100 million. Seems like a good idea. So there are alternatives coming along, but basically the world of the law internationally has not changed historically very fast and continues not to do so. It's only a few years ago, for example, that the Law Society of England and Wales declared that they were officially, and here I quote, against email, unquote. You know, what do you... I despair. What are you going to do with people like that are against email? Well, okay, I come here today to talk to you about a venture which I'm setting up called Inventor Centre, which is about to kick off in the new year. Before I do that, I have to tell you a really very sad tale. And I mean this, it is genuinely a very tragic tale. In 1839, a guy you may have heard of called Charles Goodyear was for some reason best known to himself, just like an eccentric inventor, playing about in his kitchen. He happened to have some liquid natural rubber, and he happened to have some sulfur, and he happened to spill these on the stove. You know, his kitchen must have been a terrible mess. But as a result of that, he inadvertently invented vulcanization, a process without which none of us could drive cars and which underpins, you know, the entire industrial world. Unfortunately, he then told two of his pals about this. They scurried off into the background, patented the idea without telling him. He naturally got a bit miffed and took them to court. Probably a foolish mistake, because what happened then was that he lost the case. He was thrown into a debtor's prison 4 years later, and some of his children actually subsequently died of malnutrition. Now, you may argue, well, you know, that's a somewhat extreme, if salutary case, but even nowadays, inventors are coming into difficulties in connection with the world of intellectual property. And when I talk to young inventors and young entrepreneurs who want to have a startup company, maybe they've been at university and they have a great idea and they might want to make some money out of that, they're often a little bit concerned that making money is a kind of a bad thing. Making money is greed. We saw this still in Howard's talk of the film Wall Street, where the phrase "greed is good" is used. And I think a lot of people who are interested in having some kind of an entrepreneurial existence are concerned that making money is all about greed. It's all about rampant capitalism. Well, once again, to echo what Reingold said, you know, I think that cooperation is now creating new ways to make wealth, not just new forms of wealth, but new ways to make wealth. It's currently just too damned hard to make any money by being an inventor. The world, however, is full of advisors. Almost every hole in the hedge has got advisors on board who claim to be able to tell people how to make money out of their ideas. But in my experience, the motivation of these people is often wrong. At one extreme, you have the world of venture capital, where the motivation is massive profit. Full stop, end of story. At least it's clear. At the other end, you have a whole range of advisors who are paid lots of money, but whose motivation is pretty much non-existent. And I'm talking about a huge range of government-orientated advisors, people who don't have experience in actually sitting down and negotiating a deal in return for any money. It's all well-intentioned, but it's pretty damned ineffective. And in fact, it has been shown that the longer you spend at a Scottish university, the less likely you are ever to start a company of your own. That's horrific as far as I'm concerned. So you're less likely as a PhD graduate than you would be as a first degree graduate. And even first degree graduates are less likely than people who've never been to university. Anyway, Inventor Centre, I hope, is going to help out with some of these things. And its single most defining characteristic is that it is a social enterprise. We're setting this up as a social enterprise. Well, what does that mean? Some of you probably know better than I do what that means. But essentially it means that any money we make, and we are going to make money, all of it will be reinvested in the social objective of Inventor Centre. So nobody's going to be running away from the scene with, you know, a back pocket stuffed full of somebody else's money. That is not going to happen, because we'll be subject to a heck of a lot of scrutiny, but also the policy will be reinvestment of the profits. It'll rely, therefore, on donations of a number of different forms. One will be a percentage of people's ideas. So I want inventors, and not everybody thinks of themselves as an inventor. I want people with ideas. Like Paolo told me when I was talking about giving this talk, I have lots of ideas, but I don't write them down, or I don't know what to do with them, and it's all such a hassle because you have to talk to lawyers. And Inventor Centre will be that place where inventors, people with good ideas, can phone us up and say, I've got something I want to talk to you about. They donate a bit of what it is they own, whatever that is, and it might turn out to be like all of my ideas, or most of them, complete rubbish. But that's neither here nor there. They make a donation. Some people might want to donate money, who knows. Some people will want to donate time and skills, and that's how we're going to make it work, by cooperation. It is interesting that just because I've set this up as a social enterprise, we have lawyers who are actually saying, you know, we're going to do some work for you free. We're going to contribute something. And I'm going to hold them to that. So what are we going to provide? We're going to provide some economies of scale. I'm going to let inventors who come to Inventor Centre get access to, preferentially, to the right lawyers, which is something that's quite hard to do, and they're not going to be ripped off cost-wise to do that, because I'll have commitments to pro bono work. We're also going to provide a shop window, which I think is absolutely vital, whereby the world of business can look at the protected inventions that we hold and say, you know what, I'd quite like to buy some of that, and they can do it in a convenient way. What we're actually going to do also is to try and build some improved business skills. We're going to build some improved innovation skills amongst people who, in this country, for example, often don't think of themselves as growing up to become an inventor. We're going to actually make a profession of being an inventor. And part of that profession involves understanding stuff like how to get protection for your ideas without going near a patent attorney. Oh. Yes, you can do it. There's a huge number of tricky ways whereby you can get rock-solid protection for your ideas under the right circumstances if you do the right things without having to pay £400 an hour plus VAT. That's the going rate, by the way. So we're going to increase the number of licenses that local inventors create, and we're going to create some startup companies. This, I hope, is going to create some local sustainable income and employment over the longer term. This isn't just going to be a flash in the pan. And you may be thinking, I hope you are right now, how can I help? Well, if you are, first of all, I want you to all start thinking of yourselves as potential inventors. If you have an idea in the shower at any stage, you're an inventor. Don't let that slip past. You don't have to be an eccentric like me to be an inventor. The world is full of people who are kind of stealth inventors. That's one way you can help. And in addition to which, you might like to think about nominating people who would like to sit on our advisory board. We want to have as diverse a board as possible, people who are really going to hold this to account and scrutinize the whole process. Has anybody come up with a theme for what these images are about? Anybody? Oh, yes.
Give solutions to problems.
Excellent answer. That is true. That's not the theme I was looking for.
Were they all invented in the UK?
No, indeed not. That's not correct, in fact.
No patents for them?
Interesting. Some of these things were, in fact, patented. Are they all inventions? Yes. Yes. Excellent answer. That is correct, too. But once again, sorry, I'll stop playing clever dick and just tell you the answer, okay? The theme behind all of these images is that they represent inventions by people who had no form of higher education. And it thus illustrates, I hope, the fact that pretty much, a lot of the invention that the world currently relies on has happened by people who didn't necessarily have a PhD in that subject, who didn't necessarily have a Bachelor of Arts degree in that subject. Lots of people are capable of creating highly valuable intellectual property, and it's a massive resource, like apples, if you like. It's a massive resource that's everywhere, and we aren't using it at the moment. So, my message to you is let's start using it. Thank you very much indeed for your help.